Hello, everyone. We're welcome to the SPAC meeting for June 13, 2024. We currently don't have quorum yet, so we're just going to be waiting the 15 minutes for those of you online.
Good evening, committee members and staff. My name is Juan de Silva. I'm the Supervisor of Legislative Services here at the City of Brantford. I'll be calling the meeting to order today since we have the election of the chair and the vice chair for the SPAC committee. So to begin, I'm going to be asking for nominations for the position of chair. If anybody wants to nominate another member, they can do it now. Member Streisfeld?
Just muted. Can you unmute, Andy?
Councillor Solomon?
Can you unmute?
Yeah, yes, member, we can hear you.
Okay.
Would you like to nominate somebody from the committee for the position of chair?
Is it possible to nominate myself unless somebody nominates me?
Yep, you can nominate yourself as well.
Okay.
Okay. Any other nominations? Councilor Sullivan?
David Glusta.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay. Since member Klesser has been nominated, we're going to need to waive the rules in order to allow the current chair to be in the chair of the committee for another term, as per section of.
Juan, to make things easier, why don't we just have Andy made acclaimed as chair and David as vice chair?
We can do that as well if member Streisfeld wants to be nominated wants to withdraw from chair and wants to be nominated for the position as vice chair. We can do that as well.
Reverse that.
Would you be okay with that?
Reverse that.
Sorry, member Streisfeld for the position of vice chair, yes?
No. And
Chair.
Andy Strauss will become the chair and then David will become the vice chair. This way we don't have to waive the rules.
My apologies, yes, and you would not need to waive the rules for that, correct? Okay, anybody else then for the nomination for, any other nomination for the position of vice chair or chair? Either one of the two? No?
Unfortunately, I'll be declining. I'm not going to serve
Okay,
in either role.
okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So we have a position for chair from member Streisfeld. Since there's any other nomination, that position has been acclaimed. Can I have a nomination for the position of vice chair now?
I'll nominate myself then.
Member
Lawrence.
Lawrence has been nominated for the position of vice chair. Any other nomination? Okay, since I see none, member Lawrence has been acclaimed for the position of vice chair. Member Streisfeld, since you are participating remotely today, member Lawrence can perhaps clerk today's meeting, if that's okay.
That's fine.
All right, so I will
Laptop.
be giving.
Yeah.
Actually,
Actually, it's both of these.
okay.
Yeah.
If you give us a couple of minutes to get set up, we will start the meeting shortly.
Yeah, you. Curriculum process. Otherwise I'll be there, I can help you. Would you mind changing seats?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, but
No,
no
you're
problem.
beside me. You need to wait.
Yeah.
I'll be taking this.
Okay, so roll call, the Environmental and Sustainability Policy Advisory Committee meeting is now called to order. Roll call has been taken by the clerk.
Through the chair. I can- roll call,
Just so you know, Juan, Taylor's had her hand up.
My apologies. You can call her.
Okay, Taylor?
Quick question, sorry, is this to re-elect chairperson and vice chairperson for the committee on an ongoing basis?
Yes,
Is it standard for that not to be on the agenda and to come up at the beginning of the meeting with no prior notice, or was it something that came up last minute?
these came up last minute through the chair. These came up last minute. However, it's not an item that needs to be on the agenda since there's no delegation there's no delegation opportunity for that item. It's more of an administrative item.
Okay, I'm just concerned because we have a number of members who aren't here that aren't going to be aware that this was even happening, or like I understand, obviously they're not here, but I'm just concerned about the individuals that aren't actually here to potentially speak on this topic or to provide any sort of input.
Perhaps we can revisit that. We can get advice on that for a future meeting, and we can, if that decision, any of that decision needs to be revised, we can do that at a later meeting, if that is okay with you.
Thank
And
you.
with the chair.
Okay, item 2, declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest for any of the items listed on the agenda? Okay, no conflicts declared. Okay, presentation and delegations. There are no presentations on the agenda today. Okay, item 4, items for consideration. There are 3 items for consideration on the agenda. Okay, so 4.1, 2024 Climate Action Implementation Plan and Update, Financial Impact, none, 2024-388. I will ask staff now to give a brief overview of the report.
So through the chair, thank you, Gagan Batra, Manager of Business Support and Sustainability from Public Works Commission. So this is an annual report we bring typically after the budgets are approved at the beginning of the year at the city. So I'll leave it to Rebecca, our climate change officer, to discuss more. But after we provide the overview, we'll be happy to take any questions about this report.
Right, so through the chair, Rebecca Shepanowski, Climate Change Officer. So within this report, we've outlined several action items that staff plan to implement throughout 2024 for both the corporate and community climate change action plans. Some of the action items outlined for the corporate CCAP include tree canopy expansion, continuing to convert our streetlights to LED, installing EV chargers, continuing to convert our fleet to electric, implementing the net zero building standard, developing a fleet optimization strategy, developing a retrofit strategy for our buildings, and then continuing with the transit route optimization study. And action items for the community CCAP outlined for this year include developing climate and environmental educational materials for residents, and just looking into home energy retrofit programs and exploring green development standards. As well, the corporate CCAP has actually now been in place for 5 years, and as part of that plan, we're required to review that plan every 5 years. So now that 5 years is up, we're looking to the committee to provide any feedback on the corporate CCAP and how it can be improved for the next 5 years. And I did just want to highlight that over the last 5 years, we have completed or have begun implementing 28 of the 35 action items.
So you'll see in the recommendation for this item, we've left a couple of blanks in there that we'll leave it to clerks to fill out once we get your feedback. So any input you want to give us, clerks will add that in here and we'll include it in our future report that's going to our committee of the whole.
I have a question. So in the 5 years that you've been doing this, how much lower is our CO2 emissions in the city?
Yeah, we had a report that we took in 2023 at the end of the year. I'll let Rebecca speak more about it. The update report where we did our inventory update, and I think it was 2% decrease in both streams.
For the corporate stream and 6% decrease in the community stream. But that was just using 2022 emissions data compared to our baseline of 2018.
And that's just numbers. That's actually not readings taken out on a continuous basis, actually CO2 readings taken out in the community.
No, it's based on the utility bills for electricity and natural gas.
Yeah, so it's just numbers. It's not actually true data.
Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder to place the item on the floor? You gotta read this.
We need a mover and a seconder for now.
Can you read that?
I can't see. Oh, Mike. Okay. Okay, so Councilor Seller moves and David seconds. Okay, any additional discussion, questions on it? Anyone? Okay, so
Through the chair, just sorry. The question on the topic, can I still ask? So the items that you listed are from the original, and what you're looking for is extra, like additional items or refinements to that. Do you know which ones have not been looked at? Do you have the list there, or?
Yes, so through the chair, some of the items that have not yet started include our climate change adaptation plan, retrofitting our wastewater and water treatment plants, retrofitting a minimum of 50% of the city buildings, just to name some of them. So what we're looking for feedback is just if we should add additional items, if we should remove items, if we should adjust our targets. The feedback is open to discussion.
So I'll just add to that too. A lot of the items that we haven't yet started, it's not because of lack of work we've been doing. They were identified as being longer term items. So retrofitting our buildings to 50%. A lot of the work we've done, as we outlined in our report last year, has been preparatory. A lot of the studies, so we can identify what types of retrofits we need, for example. That was one of the things that we did. And then doing a study on transit and seeing how we can implement low carbon options for that. But yeah, so as Rebecca said, we can relook at those targets. Some cities have been looking at their targets of, net zero by 2050. Some cities are relooking at that, considering obviously there's a lot of things that have changed since a lot of these cities have taken on that climate emergency declaration. And also if there's other sectors that we want to target, because obviously, we've written in many of our reports that buildings are a significant target for us, but that's likely one of the more expensive items. So it may be one that takes a little bit longer to achieve. And maybe we want to start with something else.
You have two buildings now that they're being, like the hospital, number one, and the new school out on, out by the old age home there. Those are two buildings now that need to be looked at and worked with and make them net zero right away. If you're redesigning them, get it done right now, because if not, like this building should have been done and redone when you did it to be net zero, and instead you didn't. And one of the easiest ways to make these old buildings net zero is use the sewage running in front of it to heat it and to cool it.
Through the chair, we did, sorry, so used to it. Sorry. Through the chair, we did approve the net zero building standard, or council actually did approve our net zero building standard in 2022. And all of our designs going forward are going to be fully net zero or net zero ready builds. That's what we've been building for.
So the hospital uses a ton of gas and a ton of electricity. So using the sewage in front of it is simple way to heat and cool it at true net zero. And that new school too, that whole new subdivision out there, that whole thing should be run off the sewage that runs in front of it. There's lots of places in BC and Alberta, communities in BC and Alberta who have designed this, and their heating and cooling is run by the sewage that they flush down the toilet in, and your dishwasher every night, every day.
Through the chair, if I may, is that one of the comments that you would like to forward to staff, that you would like to include in the recommendation?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. So the usage of sewage for cooling and heating
of new developments, of new large developments, and any large retrofit buildings that you're doing, like the hospital.
Just to clarify, sorry, Rebecca was just telling me, we're seeking input for the corporate action plan right now, and those buildings are not in our corporate portfolio. We're looking at more so buildings like City Hall, for example, buildings that are owned and operated by us. Hospital would be outside of that purview, but we can certainly put that in for
buildings
corporate
and
facilities.
corporate, that's the city owns too.
For heating.
Yeah.
Yes.
Heating and cooling purposes. Actually, there's a hospital in Toronto that recently retrofitted. They're using the sewage to heat and cool their building.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
And cities. Okay, Taylor?
I have a few things that I'd love to bring up. One of them, what is the plan? You have both wastewater reduction program and stormwater reduction plan on there. I'm wondering if there has been already ideas running or anything that's come up. Hamilton actually just announced that they are implementing, and I know this is a very broad idea, but they are implementing essentially separate meters for wastewater for residential properties, and individuals are going to be charged separately for their wastewater. It won't be essentially tagged onto their water usage. And it's incentivizing residents, and of course, this would be part of the community side of things, but it is incentivizing residents to implement processes that utilize gray water and utilize their stormwater. And I'm just wondering if this is something the city's ever considered.
Yeah, so through the chair, we have not looked at that quite yet in terms of like metering, but for wastewater reduction programs, of course, we do encourage residents to install low flow toilets and faucets and shower heads to, again, both reduce the incoming water and reduce the amount of water that is actually being wasted as well. But that's a really good idea to consider. Thank you.
And then I noticed that a lot of the action items are very, very corporate heavy. There's not a lot of community related action items on that plan. Would there be an opportunity to shift a little bit more of a focus into the community and providing and supporting residents in, implementing some of these ideas as well?
Through the chair, we have a corporate action plan and we have a community action plan. They're two separate documents. So the one for which we're seeking feedback specifically today is the corporate side.
Okay.
But the community side, I'm sure we can send in a link. It's on our website as well. The community one, we haven't provided that wording in here.
Okay.
But that one's a lot more geared towards what you're saying about providing support and communications and help and tips for how to get people to reduce their GHG emissions at home. That's also good.
Okay. I just want to note, because I think if I leave, we don't have quorum. I will be signing off at 6:30.
So back to the low flow waters and low flow toilets, could you not make that part of your building process, where if you want a building permit, your toilets and your sink faucets that have to be low flow?
We, through the chair, we can look into that. We've been discussing with planning some green, building standards for the like homeowners and developments. It's something we're working on, and we're planning to provide some information to council of some options later on in the year.
Because even like, I noticed that new development out past the mall, like all those townhomes in there, you see a bunch of them with heat pumps on it, and there's a whole row of them, or many of them, with standard air conditioning. That should not fly. Every one of those new homes should have had a heat pump in it. That, to me, I saw that and I blew my mind. I was like, wow, something got missed here.
Through the chair, from a corporate perspective, are we moving into like discussion about the ideas at this point? Yeah, okay. Just making sure like we're dealing with the right aspect. So from a corporate perspective, a number of the key emitters were corporate fleet, and I didn't hear that discussed in the plan. Or I know it's in the works to look at reducing that. I think you mentioned EVs, but are there any other measures beyond the transit that you're looking at that are ways to green the fleet more so?
Through the chair, one of the action items that we are working on this year is a fleet optimization strategy, and that will look at right sizing the fleet as well as vehicle sharing and just green driving practices as well. So we're hoping that will help to reduce emissions with the current fleet, in addition to continuing to replace our fleet vehicles with zero emission options.
And have you looked at other forms of energy besides battery per fleet? Like I'm thinking like anything from Ford F-150 above. The math doesn't work out to make those EVs. It just doesn't. Unless you have spare batteries, and at break time, you come in and you switch the batteries out. Like Valet does with all their mining equipment.
Through the chair, I know other cities are looking at other alternate technologies. Like I know there's the discussion going on around hydrogen has come up. It's something we're exploring and looking at, but as new technology comes out, we're going to be having to explore that. Right now, we got approval from council to start transitioning our light duty vehicles. We haven't quite started transitioning the heavy duty vehicles. But once more come on market and that technology becomes available, we'll be looking at that as well.
Because Hamilton's buses all run on renewable natural gas that they create from their green bin system.
Through chair, so we have some meetings set up with we're trying to get some meetings set up to talk about RNG. So if that moves forward, we'll report back to this committee on that.
Because RNG is a net zero gas, so. And it's basically free because we pick it up at each other's doors. And you can actually make money off it too.
Yeah, through a credit system. So we're looking into all of that technology right now. Our one of our plans is more so just for the compact and the smaller vehicles, nothing for the big.
Which is EV makes sense because the math does work out and they're in town.
Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you. I was wondering if you were ever gonna get to me. First of all, know there was some mention about the school boards, and we have very, very limited say in how the school board designs and has their buildings built. They are provincially run operations, not municipally. We can give them our take on it, but quite frankly, they do what they want to do. So that's something that we would have to lobby them. But I think what we could do is in the comments is we could actually include that whatever we end up doing, that a copy of it gets forwarded to the provincial government for other services that are provided in the city.
Just don't give them a building permit. Simple as that.
It's not that simple. That's why there's an Ontario Land Tribunal.
No, I've been there.
So
Okay, are there any other comments on this item?
Through the chair, the only three comments that I capture from the committee, and if I miss one, apologies, but please bring it up. It's the usage of sewage for cooling and heating in corporate buildings, the usage of low flow water faucets and toilets, as we mentioned, improvements to the fleet. Anything else that was discussed that you guys would like to see included towards the comments?
Taylor first. Taylor?
Could we also consider including the possibility of looking into metering stormwater and wastewater?
Storm and wastewater?
Stormwater and wastewater, yes.
Sure. That's through the chair. Yeah, I have a few questions or comments or suggestions anyway. Just wanted to give some time for others. In terms of the tree canopy, I know there's a lot of municipalities around Ontario that have looked at this issue and tried to come up with a percentage of the canopy. It would be great if we continue to look and make sure that we're, comparable to other municipalities and making sure that percentage is achievable, but also in line with other municipalities. So just making sure that there's some shared experience on this. I know that Brantford's been doing a lot with tree planting, so it would be also good to know the progress of that. But I think just making sure the percentage is lined up. And another one, in terms of the net zero building, it seems quite new. So if there's an opportunity for incentives for areas where the city may not have jurisdiction, but to encourage good building practices in line with the rest of the city, to make it clear that the city is moving in that direction corporately, and to also encourage provincial partners and industries to move in that direction as well. And finally, like retrofitting. I know there's a few vacant properties right now that the city owns, but if there's opportunities to, if they're sitting vacant right now, it may be a great time to promote retrofits now before you have another occupant in there, like as a tenant. to do that retrofit now, so it actually is more appealing for the new organization that's in that zone. So those are just a few of my comments. Thanks.
Councillor Sullivan, his hand up again. Is that the same? Councillor Sullivan, do you have your hand up again, or is that? Okay.
I have a question regarding the tree canopy. Is there any regulation or follow-up based on city projects regarding the tree canopy? The reason I ask that, Palmerston has had some construction done this last 6 months, and they've taken down like 6, 7 old, huge trees. And even on the plan, not all of them were to be cut down. So is there any follow-up regulation or whatever regarding the tree canopy and regarding city projects? Because the project looks done. They've not replanted any trees at all, and they cut down more than they were supposed to, according to the city plan.
Through the chair, with regard to the tree canopy, I'm assuming that the project you're talking about, the trees were on public property or
Yes.
city property?
Yes.
Okay. We did pass a public tree bylaw back in 2023 early on, which stated that any trees cut down on public property would have to be replaced depending on the size of the tree, starting with at least 3 trees minimum, and then increasing depending on the size of that tree, up to 10 trees for each one that's removed. And the city projects are bound to the same bylaw as well. So for example, in any construction projects we have, what we've been doing is determining how many trees are being removed. Forestry assesses every single tree and tells the project manager or the department that's responsible for that project, this is how many trees you need to replant. I know forestry always gives preference to replant in the same area from which they take the trees down, but in some places it's not always possible because underground infrastructure,
Right.
just the,
Sure.
composition of the
Location,
streets, it's
yeah.
just not possible. And in that case, the funding for those trees that need to be replanted would go to forestry for them to later determine the best place to put them, whether that's right-of-way trees or whether they go into a city park. But they're always replanted even for city projects.
Can I ask a follow-up? Is there a certain timeline for this to happen?
Through the chair, we do try to do it within the same year, but however, if it's a large number of trees that we're not able to plant or the time of year is not conducive to planting, we would wait until the following year. But usually we try and do it within the same timeline.
Thank you.
So vote to accept this, all in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, so we'll carry that. So on to item 4.2, 2024 SPAC budget, financial impact none, 2024-389. I'll ask staff now to give a brief overview of the report.
Yep, so I can start and let Rebecca take it from there, but if you'll recall, we brought this report last year as well. There's funding that SPAC receives through the operating budget that's approved. And we're looking for a direction from the committee on how they would like to use that. So similarly to the previous report, there's a blank left in this report, the recommendation. So whatever the committee decides they want to use this funding for, we would input that into the recommendation and send that in. That would be the direction to staff, but I'll let Rebecca take it and provide some more details.
Yes, so as through the operating budget, so SPAC is allocated $5,000 each year. Last year, we did $3,000 for a second free tree giveaway for residents. And then $2,000 was then used for purchasing Brantford Climate Action promotional material that the committee can then use at events. So this year, staff are recommending to use the $5,000 to host either another free tree giveaway for residents or to fund the creation of a commercial/industrial tree planting program that would then allow businesses to plant trees onto their property. And as we all know, a large portion of the land in Brantford that can support tree planting is actually on private property. And in order for the city to reach its greenhouse gas emission reduction goals, we do need to offset emissions, and a great way to do that is by planting trees since they are a natural carbon sink.
I'll just add to that, the funding, just wanted to say thank you to the committee first for providing the funding last year for the free tree giveaway. It was a super successful event. We were really happy to do that. As you know, every spring we host a free tree giveaway where residents can claim a tree, and it's always a native species. They can come pick it up and plant it themselves. And it's probably one of our more popular events, I'd say, throughout the year, and it's always lined up with Earth Day. We get funding from council every year to do expansion projects for trees, and typically we do the one in the spring for Earth Day. This was the first year we did one in the fall as well because of the funding that SPAC provided. So from what I heard, the trees got scooped up within the first day, I think it was. This is such a popular program that they get all allocated within the first day that we open up registration. So it is a very popular event and use of the funding. Just throwing that out there. And the commercial tree planting was something that a community resident who is very active in the realm of tree planting and tree initiatives had brought up to us, because there's such a huge majority of our trees are on private property, and a lot of the space available, it's not actually public. So the idea around this is that if there's, say, $5,000, we would match with that $5,000 the funds that any business puts in. So if they have $1,000 that they need for their project to do their tree planting at their site, this funding would pay for $500 of it, and they would pay the rest of the $500. So it's one of those incentive programs that we're trying to offer to the businesses and the industry and the community to take part in a little bit more of that action as well. Just a little bit of background, but we're happy to take any comments or suggestions on how SPAC would like to use the funds.
Okay, can I please have a mover and seconder to place the item on the floor? Okay, and I saw Councillor Sullivan's hand up. And seconder? Taylor. Okay, questions, Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Chair. To staff, I would recommend, I remember last year I made the comment about if we go with the trees, that we look at some of the trees being endangered native trees. Well, I would recommend that this time we do all endangered native trees. We've got to put some of these trees back in place that have been missing or are dying off.
Thank you. We can speak with forestry about that if that's the direction the committee goes.
Okay, Taylor?
I have a few questions. I do want to echo Councillor Sullivan's comment about potentially considering choosing 100% endangered species. A couple of questions, and please interrupt me if this is not the right time to bring this up. I do feel like there's a few errors in the report. The budget for SPAC for 2020 and 2021 was used on the videos that were produced by Atomic Spark that we still haven't seen put out into the community. So while we're talking about budget, when is the videos that $10,000 were spent to create going to land into the community?
Through the chair, the videos have been posted on our social media platforms. They've been circulating for a few months now, I believe.
Okay.
There was a little bit of a delay because there were some requirements our communications team has in terms of using city platforms to promote videos. So we just had to make sure they were in line with that. But the videos have been circulating steadily through the platforms.
Okay, good to know. I'll take a peek again. I haven't seen anything and I've gone searching for them. Last year, we had approved $2,000 to be generated on communications items, as you've already mentioned. Where did that land? You know, we all got an email about t-shirt sizes, which I was surprised to receive. I haven't heard anything since the fall about what actually happened with that budget, what was created, how is it being circulated, how does it pertain to us, and how can we continue to promote the $2,000 that was spent?
Through the chair, it was the direction of the committee at the time to create promotional materials. So we did have our communications team work on that branded material. And we brought them today actually and just circulated the materials to people who are in the room, and we can definitely keep them for, of course, the members who are virtual today as well. But we did buy just one t-shirt for each person so they can identify themselves if they're ever available at an event. We did produce lanyards and pencils and stickers, just some branded material we can give away at any of these events. It was discussed last time that we have events throughout the city, like the Santa Claus events and, you know, Canada Day and all these other things that take place. So we were directed to buy things that we can give away just promotionally. And aside from that, we got one of the branded tablecloths in case there's ever need to have a table at an event where we want to promote SPAC and the environmental initiatives, as well as a back, I don't know what they're called, the banners, yes. a
Yes.
banner.
Okay. Thank you. And then I just have a couple considerations for this year's budget. I'm really glad we were able to help fund another tree giveaway. I also heard that it sold out literally within minutes, which is amazing. And I think it would be really cool to do something like that again. I really love the idea. I had already written down the idea of potentially supporting private sector and businesses with tree planting. I think that's a wonderful idea. I also wonder if there would be an opportunity for us to allocate a portion of the budget to support schools that are looking to plant trees. In my personal life, I actually get a lot of requests from schools, and I believe the city does as well, about receiving free trees to be able to put onto school lots. Of course, we know school lots are quite big, and not a lot of them do have a good tree canopy. So it might be, again, a good opportunity to get some of that canopy into some of that space. So it would be nice for us to consider allocating a portion, either of those trees or the budget to support elementary and secondary schools with planting.
Through the chair, that's something we can look at. Yep.
And then my last suggestion, last year, in November of 2023, the city completed their first planting of a microforest in Homedale at the TB Costain. I understand that there's another one on the books, and I wonder if there may be an opportunity for us to either support the planting that's coming up. I think it's the end of this year, or potentially fund another one. And again, maybe that's a next year problem, but potentially fund another microforest. We were able to plant 200 trees in a very, very dense space with the support of Brant Tree Coalition. So it'd be maybe a good opportunity to support one of those plantings again.
Yep, through the chair, that's something we can look at. We work with Brant Tree Coalition regularly throughout the year to identify those locations. My only thing is I'm not sure if another location for a microforest, I think funding has already been found for that. So that may be something we use next year's budget for, you know, if we bring this report next year. But for the ones this year that we need money on, I think we can definitely look into the school planting or the tree giveaway again.
Okay, thank you.
Andy?
Hi, everybody. Listen, I'm sorry. I was going to wait till new business because I was trying to look through the agenda here. My question, and please through the chair to anybody who can answer the question for me, is the spending of the money. Is it necessary that it has to be decided today, or is it an open budget that during the lifetime of 24 we can do it? Because I'm running under the misguided understanding that we still have to come back to council in August to talk about what happened back in the spring. And if the longevity of this committee is only today's meeting, then okay, we spend the money. But if we are going to have a second lease on life, then there should be some money left in reserve just in case if there are worthwhile projects towards the end of the year. So can someone just set me straight or correct me? I'd appreciate that.
Through the chair, yep, we don't have to spend the money or figure out where we're spending the money today, Andy, but we just brought it as a consideration to get some recommendations from the committee today that we can look into and figure out what the costing would be for some of the initiatives. However, if the committee would like to wait and decide that, we can wait until our next meeting.
Through the chair, I can also add that if the committee finds that it's better to wait another meeting cycle, the item can be deferred.
Yeah.
And further consideration can be given to the item at a future meeting, at the next meeting cycle. The item can come back and additional recommendations can be given to the item.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to give my support to Taylor's idea. I thought the idea of the school board plantings might be a really great dovetail with our work. If we're looking to maybe branch out from residential tree planting to something a little bit more institutional, given that many park users, like many of the parks are adjacent to a school anyway. I think it's a really good way to boost the partnership between the schools and the city. So I just wanted to suggest that. I thought that was a good idea. If I may have a suggestion to Andy's point, is it possible to like, fleshing this out, but is it possible to have a default position that we would spend the money on a tree planting unless the city or, by the end of the year, unless SPAC revisits that decision this year? Like, is it possible to have that as like a default position and then give some time to Andy's suggestion that SPAC looks at it again? I mean, that way we've decided on something, so the money doesn't go to waste, but SPAC can have another chance to look at it when,
So,
just a suggestion. I don't know if it's even possible, but.
so through the chair, just to clarify then, if we're spending the funding, for example, on a fall tree plant, we decide that now, but then come back for verification just before we spend the money to make sure we want to spend it on.
Yeah,
Unless we've
it
got
can even
another
be at
place.
the next meeting, right? So, allowing that, just that way we have quorum now. We may not have it in the future, right? So that way at least we're, we have a default position that we go ahead. Just a suggestion. And
Great idea about the school tree planting, and it's something to consider. You may want to team up with Hydro One. Hydro One goes to many schools, public schools, every year on the Arborist Day, and plants trees and takes their arborist machinery and their lift trucks and that, and shows kids what they do. So you may want to consider teaming up with Hydro and maybe even getting a couple extra schools done if you team up with them and they contribute money as well.
Okay, sure. One thing I would like to bring up, I'm all in favor of supporting at risk and so forth tree canopy, but I think I'm working on a forestry project right now. We need to be careful. The climate is changing. I'm working on a group in central Ontario right now, and there's huge die-off of certain trees, and it's because of the temperature. So if we're replacing trees, great. We need to make sure that the trees are going to exist, right? I mean, we don't want to be replacing with trees that are going to end up dying. So I just wanted to bring that up because it's a huge issue right now. Central Ontario, entire groves of like birch trees and so forth are just dying. So we need to be careful about what we pick and how many and so forth. So.
You, Taylor?
To add to that, would there be an opportunity, if we did move forward with any sort of tree giveaway, to consult with the forestry department about their recommendations when taking that into consideration? Because obviously they're going to have the most experience about what is growing successfully in Brantford. And then I do have a second recommendation. I apologize, I missed this one in my notes, but Parks and Rec used to have a community cleanup bin that community members could actually rent, and they could essentially sign it out. It had all the materials to safely do a community cleanup within Brantford. They've discontinued the program. Why that is, I'm not sure, and I wouldn't want to burden staff, but I wonder if there's an opportunity to look at why that program was turned off and potentially see if there's any funding or any way that we could support having that bin made accessible again. I personally went to use it a few times and was really disappointed that I wasn't able to utilize that resource. So maybe another potential budget item to consider.
Yep, through the chair on the first item, typically what we do is once we get the money allocated, the funding gets allocated, we would work with forestry, and forestry is the one that takes on that project for the tree giveaway. They're the experts, certainly. So we would leave that to them as well in consultation. And the second item, the Parks and Recreation bin, I don't have the answer to that, but we can look into that and provide some more information to the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you. I do like the concept and principle with regards to the tree planting at the school. However, you have to look at all the pros and all the cons. And once again, we're talking about private lands. They're not city-owned lands. So, and when we build schools, when the school board builds schools, they build it for the current need, not the need that's going to exist when the school is finished. This is why we end up seeing all these portables on all these school properties and why we end up looking at expansions to schools later. So we could plant these trees and the school could determine it needs to expand the building and we lose the trees and we can't do nothing about it. So I like the idea in principle, but I think maybe we should be looking at other facilities, like maybe some of the city-run facilities, like Wayne Gretzky Center, the new Southwest Park that's going in around our library and stuff like that. Places where we actually own the land so that nothing can happen to them.
Through the chair, sorry, okay, through the chair, I'm wondering then for this recommendation, if we want to keep it a little bit simple and say, you know, $5,000 or however much the committee decides to be used for tree planting initiatives. And just keep it at that for now, and then we can, you know, discuss at a later date if it's a fall tree planting or whatever it might be, unless the committee directs us to do a specific giveaway now. But maybe if we just earmark it.
The other thing I wanted to mention too, sorry to interrupt you, Gagan, is the fact that we're already into June. So we've already lost half the year on this budget. So we need to make sure whatever we're gonna do, we're gonna have the time frame to actually plant these things. Because you're gonna get to a certain point where now you're out of planting season and we haven't allocated the budget.
Taylor, is that your hand again?
Yeah, I just want to point out that I recognize it was a very good point that these schools may need to eventually expand. I would argue, though, doing a residential tree giveaway, you kind of run into the same risks. Typically, there's turnover with house sales and things like that. People can come through and remove trees, especially because from what I understand, we don't have the private tree protection bylaw in place, hopefully yet. But anyone could come through and remove that tree technically. So, I mean, I hear the concern there. And again, you know, maybe we didn't approach all of the schools. Maybe when they came to us, we had funds waiting for them to be able to support them with that. But I think that's kind of an issue that you would face anywhere except for public property now.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan, is your hand up? Okay, so I was going to ask if we wanted to put an amendment forward to try to focus on native trees, but given your comments as well, maybe.
But native
Maybe
trees
we-
are okay, we just gotta make sure they can handle any increase in temperature. And that's the issue, because some trees, if it goes up 1 degree, they're gone.
If it's a Carolinian species, they should be able to.
Yeah, it should be okay.
Should be able to
So
handle it.
I just wanted to bring it up just to be careful, right?
Okay.
I think native trees are the way to go, but we gotta make sure we pick the right native trees, because some of them aren't gonna make it.
So maybe if we work with an amendment, maybe to focus on native trees 100%, that would survive
Yes.
the increases in climate.
Through the chair, I think, I'm not sure, we clarify instead of maybe an amendment, but just in the space, we say to be allocated for native species of trees. I'm just putting that right in the recommendation.
Yeah, through the chair, we can certainly do that. Instead of as an amendment, we can just embed it in the tree planting allocation funds to be allocated for tree plantings, as Doug said, specifically for native species that will survive.
Climate resilient,
Yes.
yeah.
So, yeah, there are things.
Yeah, I think I heard Councillor Sullivan's thoughts on that, and I think it does make some sense to keep it a little bit more broad. I think maybe we can say like native species in consultation with recommendations from the forestry department or something.
Yeah.
That way they have some input on which ones might survive. So, but I agree with keeping it relatively broad for these purposes.
So maybe that, sorry, through the chair, that $5,000 be allocated to use for tree planting initiatives for native species per recommendations from the forestry department.
Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, I'm not feeling that wording. I would rather see something along the lines of being put down as endangered native species that are climate adjusted. So example, the emerald ash borer, that took out the emerald trees. That was not climate that did it. That was an insect, a pest that did it. The Dutch elm tree, It was a pest that took it out, not climate. These are the types of trees I'm referring to, not ones that are dying due to climate.
You get that one?
If I may, for clarification, I have, as part of the comments from the committee, $5,000 allocated to tree planting initiative for endangered species that are climate resilient. I also have the support of an existing or new microforest. I believe was member Taylor who spoke about it. We don't have an amount for that. I was wondering if the committee would like to allocate any funds for that.
We only
Yeah.
have 5,000 total.
Okay, so that wouldn't be in order. Okay, sounds good. So that means that the motion would be for that first item, 5,000 for the tree planting.
And the tree planting could be part of that micro
Yeah.
forest too. If they came to us and we could just use that as part of that. So,
Yeah,
okay, double.
I think what staff would do with that recommendation is determine alongside forestry, the best use for it and provide us with the recommendation based on what programs are currently underway throughout the city, what's currently planned through partners and what requires funding and what we have time to do within the given timelines to make sure that we can spend that funding for the rest of the year.
Okay, so hold the vote for this. So all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, we have 3 minutes of quorum left.
I will stick around. I'm just gonna pop to my phone. You can still see my face, but I might be moving around.
Okay, so item 4.3, Green Awards nomination review, financial impact none, 2024-390. So I'll ask staff to give a very brief overview of the report.
Yep, so this report is a regular report we bring as well to the committee just to decide on who would be the winners of the Green ER Awards that the committee decides on every year. Usually we do it around Earth Day, but we would present these ones at the next city council meeting. And SPAC helped us to determine the nomination form and the criteria for these awards last year. And we started doing them again last year after taking a break from COVID, but I'll let Rebecca speak to it. What we're looking for is some discussion around who should be given those awards based on those nominations, and we'll take that and then apply that to the next city council meeting.
So the Green ER Awards typically recognizes individuals, families, green businesses all across the city for their environmental efforts for that year. This year we received 3 nominations. We have Brianna Leader for the Young Environmental Champion Secondary Age, and then we have the Brantford Brant Chamber of Commerce for the Green Business, and Wilfrid Laurier University Brantford Campus also for the Green Business. The nomination submissions can be found in Appendix A, and the evaluation criteria can be found in Appendix B. I don't know if we're able to bring those up, maybe for the members to see. So yeah, the committee is asked to review those submissions and choose a winner for each of those categories, and then the winners will be announced at the June 25th City Council meeting.
You want the evaluation or the nomination submission?
Can I just put forward, I don't know if it'd be a motion, but could I put forward? I would love to nominate Laurier and Brianna Leader for the business Green Award and for the secondary level Green Award.
Is it what you were looking for, Rebecca?
Just if the committee members would like to discuss the winners of the Green Business Award, seeing as we have 2 nominations for that one. By default, Brianna would receive the Environmental Champion Award.
Is there a specific page you want me to share?
It's just their submission forms unless the
okay.
committee members have reviewed it already and would like to discuss.
Counselor Sullivan?
A little bit off topic, but it's actually vitally important. I'm actually a little disappointed at the fact that we've only got 3 submissions. What do we do as a committee to get people more engaged so we actually get more submissions?
Through the chair, I can start with that, and I think it's a question for the committee to discuss, but we do steadily work with our communications department, as you know, Councillor Sullivan, to promote these Green ER awards and why it's important, and we do send out media releases when they get released, asking for submissions, and it's, you know, I think it's something that maybe as a committee we can discuss and see if there are other avenues which we should be using outside of the city's communications. But we're happy to take any feedback that the committee has on that.
Water bills. Not everybody's using online still. We're not all there yet. So if we had a slip in the actual water bills that almost everybody in the city gets, I think we might get a little more of a bite.
Andy first. Andy?
Yes, sorry, quick question. I just realized there could be a conflict for me, but I do want to answer. Okay, sorry. Let me ask, if I do not vote, if I vote as an abstention or do not vote, is that going to affect quorum? Because I am a member of the Chamber of Commerce and I sit on their advocacy committee. So I would not be able to vote for or endorse the Chamber of Commerce nominee. So do I have to exclude myself or just abstain from voting to remedy that problem? Then I want to answer Councillor Sullivan's query.
Through the chair, if you are declaring a conflict, member,
You can call me Andy, it's fine.
sorry, member Andy. If you're declaring a conflict, I would suggest turning off your camera and your microphone so you don't obviously participate on the item. But please remain on the call so we can maintain quorum.
Okay, so I'll do that in a moment. Through the chair to Councillor Sullivan and to the members of the city team, I think the number one way for next year is social media. Like I'm a past winner of the award, and I did not see anything come across social media, even though I see other aspects of Brantford city governance coming through social media. So maybe we should look at investing into a social media blast sometime for next year's ER nominations.
Through the chair, we typically do promote on social media. Sorry to you, Andy. But I think that there's, you know, a lot of things that we're promoting at once, so sometimes it does get lost, but we can send that feedback over to our communications department, certainly, that we maybe increase the amount that we're doing there.
Okay, Taylor?
So last year in 2023, we actually had a discussion about this. There were some concerns that we had about the application, and we had some suggestions for how we could tackle the Green ER Awards in 2024. Our last meeting, the only meeting we've had, was in December of 2023. The February meeting got canceled, and there was no opportunity, or it was never put on the agenda to actually discuss the Green ER Awards before they launched, and I was quite disappointed. I also went back and I checked, and it was only posted on social media once, and it's the same exact graphic that goes out annually, and it also has the Green Team mascot, and Green Team's no longer a part of SPAC, but they're still a part of, they're still a city committee, so it probably still counts. But I wonder if there's a way that we can actually put something in place where, you know, in December, January, we come together and we talk about this again before we launch the Green ER Awards. There may be an opportunity for us to optimize the process, for us to look at the application, and for us to communicate a little bit better with the community about it. I did have intentions of nominating quite a lot of green businesses and organizations. And then when the SPAC disbandment issue came up in March, I was incredibly dissuaded and chose not to participate in the program. So I am also disappointed, but I do think that as a committee, we need to revisit this before it launches for 2025 to discuss how, like, even if this program's even effective and if it's just sucking up staff resources, or if there's a way that we can actually optimize the program and increase participation. Because I know it used to be very popular and it's just really dwindled now.
Through the chair, we can bring that back as a discussion item next year before the awards launch, for sure.
I think maybe someone from the city needs to go to the schools, because every school will have an environmental committee. Someone from the city needs to go to the schools and tell them about this program. I know from my career, I can email people as much as I want, but until I go meet them face to face, I never get anything done. People nowadays are too bombarded with social medias and emails and that. They don't have time to read all that, but you go sit in front of their face and talk to them and they'll listen.
Through the chair. So at a previous meeting, there were some suggestions from the group on this topic about ways to encourage participation. One of them was for the communications department to provide some recommendations back to SPAC, and that didn't occur. So in this case, the rollout of it occurred based on the way it was done previously. So I would continue to encourage the communications department to make some suggestions back to the group for some options. I remember reaching back to that discussion. I remember one of the suggestions was similar to what you said, in that to be a little bit more targeted, to use social media, but to also, for instance, send that media release to the school board. To encourage younger individuals to participate, and maybe there's a teacher that would identify one of their students that is a green champion in their school. Those would be perfect, and those are the ones we want to champion. So I would suggest some that communications would provide some suggestions to be a little bit more targeted, recognizing it's a limited budget, but thanks.
Okay, Taylor.
I think those are great ideas, and I actually think there's an opportunity for committee members to take on that work as opposed to burdening staff. In my daily life, I'm constantly in high schools recruiting for volunteers, and we can maybe make note that this was an idea and bring it back up at the end of the year, early 2025. I personally would be happy to, maybe do an engagement campaign with the schools, with the students. Again, this is a good opportunity for SPAC to get out into the community and actually engage with people about the programs that we offer and different environmental issues surrounding, Brantford. And I just want to make it noted that this is this could potentially be a committee member opportunity to get more involved as opposed to pushing this onto staff. So again, if this can be brought up again at a later time and these suggestions are already noted, that would be very, very helpful.
Okay, thanks, Taylor. Okay, so can we get a mover, a seconder, place on the floor? Councilor Sullivan. Seconder, Taylor.
Through the chair, I just want to confirm that the Wilfrid Laurier University Brantford campus will receive the Green Business Award, and the secondary age brand leader will be presented with the Young Environmental Champion Award before we vote on the item.
Okay, favor? Okay, opposed?
Member Stritesville, if you can please rejoin the meeting to ensure that we have quorum before we proceed. Thank you.
Okay, so on the consent items. Okay, so 5.1 minutes, 5.11 Environmental Sustainability Policy Advisory Committee, December 14th, 2023. Can I have a mover and seconder to adopt the minutes? Okay. 3, then seconder. Okay. Does Andy want to speak? Is that Andrew? Andy, do you want to speak?
Yes, but I was motioning also either to motion or second for the minutes, and then I just wanted to ask a question because I wanted to know if there, because I'm looking at the agenda sheet, is there new business after minutes or is it before? So please advise, but I am also either second.
Sorry, through the chair, Member Sizewell, if you can please repeat your question. Staff didn't get the question because it was breaking out.
I'm looking at the agenda sheet right now, and I do not see either before or after minutes. If there is a section for new business, there is an issue that needs to be brought to committee before we adjourn. Stop point. I was raising my hand as well to either vote to move or to second this motion.
Through the chair, new business can be brought to the committee, but that would be through a notice of motion. The agenda that we have today does not have any other item that the members or staff can speak to. My suggestion is if you have new items, please contact the clerk's office, and we can show you the process to do that.
Sorry, can I put a point of order then in?
Sure.
We have a deadline that's been established by City Council. I think you are aware of what we're proposing. We need to have a report. I thought that it was automatically assumed when the agenda was written that this issue would be brought up. I don't think we're having another meeting in time to address the issue that Council has put before us, because SPAC, and unless someone could correct me, SPAC was given a lease of 90 days to get their act straight and get a report ready to bring in for the council to see if they would continue with us. So is that a misunderstanding and we are good for the next year, or do we need to somehow get a motion in to get everybody to the next meeting to have that meeting before the meeting that needs to go in front of the council?
Through the chair, I believe you're referring to the community review task force work. Yes, council directed staff to work on the mandate and composition review of the committee. The clerk's office has taken that work, and actually today we will be meeting, staff will be meeting with the chair of the committee just to have a first initial informal meeting to gather some thoughts on those two items. A report will be coming to the committee later on at a future meeting, in which any changes to the mandate, if any, or to the composition of the committee will be presented to the committee. The committee will then make any decisions on the mandate and composition, and then after SPAC decides on that, the committee decides on that, that recommendation will be made to the committee review task force. And that's how it's gonna make its way to council. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I thought that it was very clear that council put a date in August for us to have a follow-up meeting. But if you're saying that it can be postponed and council will not do anything rash, then I'm okay with how you've explained it.
Through the chair, even though there may not be a meeting booked, if there was some sort of timeline or these needed to be rushed, the chair can also call a meeting to discuss this item. So my answer to you is, SPAC, the committee will be consulted before staff brings anything forward to the committee review task force. If that makes sense.
Okay, so can we vote to accept those minutes? So all those in favor? Opposed? Okay. No resolutions. Item 7, notices of motion. There are no resolutions, notices of motion. Okay, adjournment. So meeting is now adjourned. Next meeting is scheduled for August 15, 2024.
Juan, can you give me a call when you get a chance?
Yes, Councilor.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.